All right, fifth dimension out of 6, which is the equitable life opportunities. The subdimensions here are child poverty and inclusive social protection. I think, as many of you know, the country has bounced back in terms of its reduction of poverty. We are at historic lows of poverty levels in the Philippines, which is great news. And the president has declared his objective of reaching single-digit poverty rate by the end of his term. These are all positive news to be applauded. At the same time, we know that child poverty, the children make up the majority of the poor population. Let me share this graphic, which represents child poverty incidence and magnitude for different years. This is 2018. These are the regions. This is the poverty incidence. That big bubble there is BARM. Every bubble is a different region. So 2018, 2021. What do we notice? This is going to be on a loop. 2015, 2018, 2021. I have to go back, okay. Okay, 15, 18, 21. How cool is this? All the bubbles, all the balls are falling. What does that mean? In all the regions, poverty incidence is going down, right? That's number one. Number two, look at BARM, 2018. I got to go back to. Okay, let's look at BARM, this one. 15, 18, 21, boom. What happened in 2019? The peace agreement, the Bangsamoro Organic Law. This is the peace dividend in action. We're seeing the peace dividend in motion. The BARM is joining the rest of the region in terms of poverty. This is amazing news. One last thing about this graph, and I'm very grateful to my team for allowing me to live out my dream of being Hans Rosling. The other thing that we're noticing, let me go back one more time. The size of the bubbles means how many poor there are in each region. Is it changing that much? The incidence is going down. They're falling down, right? But are the bubbles getting that much smaller? A little bit, right? That's because the population is growing, right? The incidence is going down, the percentage of poor children is going down, but the number of children is going up. So the head count ratio, how many children are poor, is going down, but not as fast as you would expect, right? But this is because the population is growing. The point being that just looking at the percentage, the incidence of poverty doesn't mean there's less poor children, right? It is going down, but not as fast as we would want, right? Okay. Let's look a little bit about social protection. The 4 Ps, one of the largest conditional cash transfer programs in the world, covers 4.5 million households, almost 10 million children. Let's look at which kind of children it covers. 0 to 2, very little, and the biggest chunk being the 6 to 14-year-olds, and then the 15-year-olds. So this is a great program. It has been existing for over 20 years. There is multiple impact evaluations that show that this has improvement on child outcomes, which is great. Many countries want to learn from the Philippines about the 4 Ps. One of the gaps that we're seeing is that there's very few children, young children, in the first 1,000 days covered by the 4 Ps. And this is why it's been great news that recently there was the approval of the F1KD grant, the first 1,000-day grant, as a part of the 4 Ps to effectively cover that portion of the population. We're seeing a big chunk here because some of the conditionalities related to school-age children have higher payouts, so those children are being favored in families. But that should be corrected, hopefully, with the F1KD grant as part of the 4 Ps. So really kudos to the Philippines for its robust social protection system. In terms of health insurance coverage also, you see the figures there by age. The yellow is with any health insurance, and the green is without. About around 64 from 0 all the way to 29, and increasing with older age there. Let's look a little bit now at social spending. First, as a percentage of the budget, the different colors mean different years. Education, a big chunk of the government budget, though a decreasing trend. Health, much smaller, less than 5%, but going up. And social protection, pretty constant there. The Philippines overall meets government targets, or I would say international targets when it comes to social spending. Let's look at the same thing in terms of GDP. Social services is part of the GDP. Again, education, a big chunk, but a bit of a downward trend. Health, we're seeing an upward trend. Of course, COVID affected that, but it's continuing there. And social protection, pretty constant there. So the government is definitely investing in the social sectors. The question is whether those funds are being used optimally, and are they experiencing effective utilization. What are some of the key bottlenecks when it comes to the right to equitable opportunities? The Philippines has a highly developed governance structure, and one of the bottlenecks that we see is that there's limited or different levels of local capacities and leadership capacity when it comes to the social sectors. Sometimes we're seeing weak alignment between what is planned at the national level and what actually happens at the local level. There's weak alignment there between the plans at the different levels of the LGUs. You notice that I only talked about monetary poverty. Many countries, many upper middle income countries understand that poverty goes beyond monetary poverty and measure multidimensional poverty. And that's something that we don't yet have in the Philippines. Multidimensional poverty of children, and that's something we would like to go towards to have a better sense of that. And I think as the country moves towards upper middle income status, it would be quite appropriate for it to start measuring multidimensional poverty for children. The social protection system, I mentioned, there's many different aspects, and some of it is fragmented.